steam-driven turbines right here. No high-pressure coolant injection or reactor core isolation cooling in Unit 1. We have that at Cooper. Even if we lose all electricity, we can take steam off the reactor to run steam turbines, to run pumps, to pump water back into the reactor. It's a beautiful design because you're using up energy in the reactor, you're taking pressure off of it, and then you're pumping water back in to replace water inventory. That's a good one. They didn't have that though, and that hurt them a little bit. So their fuel rods got hot. They probably melted a little bit. Japan has very little coal and oil, almost none. So they're really into nuclear power. They have 52 operating reactors. They have a lot of industry. They need a lot of power, so they need nuclear power. They are the third highest in the world for the amount of nuclear power generated. We're number 1 and France is number 2. Well, let's talk about their design and procedures, so forth. With every design comes several things: stewardship, operating handbooks, procedures, accountability to the designer and or a regulator. As far as I can tell, the Japanese reactor operators did follow their procedures. Unfortunately, they just had a somewhat weak design and they had terrible conditions, almost unprecedented conditions to deal with. We all have designs. We all deal with designs. Almost all of us have a car or a truck or a tractor. Along with that car or truck or tractor comes what? A manual, right? You have a driver's manual. The designer of your vehicle or your tractor or your truck says, hey, for optimum use of your design, we recommend you operate it this way. If you do not operate it in accordance with the manual, then you might have less than optimum performance. A designer does not want to be dishonored. He does not want to get a bad reputation for himself or his design. So he would like you to follow the procedures he gives you. Well, in the U.S., we answer to the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, the NRC. In Japan, they have something similar to that. I'm not sure exactly what it's called, but it's close to that. We're all accountable to a designer. In our case, as believers, we're accountable to the master designer. We all have seen weak designs. My dad's a farmer. At one time, he owned a New Holland TR-85 combine. And my dad and my brother were telling me about how they had problems with the rotor. The rotor has bars on it with not teeth, but like ribs that shell the corn off the cob. Well, the ribs on the outside of the rotor had literally pulled through the metal because the designer, I don't know if he was a junior engineer or what, but he had bolted the ribs to the thin sheet metal on the outside instead of bolting the ribs to the main structural members of the rotor. Bad design, dumb design. So we've all seen that, right? We've all seen inadequate designs, poor designs, sometimes good designs. But let's look at some really good designs. Let's look at some flawless designs. I had Jason read from Genesis. When we think of design, creation is usually about the first thing that comes to our mind. God just spoke. He created the heavens. He created the earth. He created everything. He created time, light, gravity, electromagnetism. He gave the earth an atmosphere with the proper composition to support life, both plant life and human life and animal life. You all know that it's about 78% nitrogen and about 21% oxygen and about 1% argon. It's unlike any other planet in our solar system. What if the force of gravity was too strong? It would crush us. What if it was too light? We would bounce off the earth and we'd float into outer space. What if the earth was too close to the sun in its orbit? We would cook. What if it was too far away? We'd freeze. The position of the Earth's orbit cannot vary by more than 2%. Plus or minus 2%. That's all you get for error. And God maintains that position precisely that we might live and that we might have crops and have food to eat. What about temperatures? What if temperature every day dropped to 100 degrees below zero and then it got up to 150 degrees above zero? We couldn't take that. So we see design in the earth, the atmosphere, gravity, everything. You may not think of this as design, but the more I thought about designs, I thought, where else? Where else besides creation do we see designs and evidence of a master designer? I thought, God has a design for the care of the poor. I've been reading in Ruth a lot, and I'm very impressed with that book, and I'm very impressed with God's design to take care of the poor. God lays out some guidelines in Exodus for care of the poor. He says, you shall not pervert justice due to the poor. He said that they should raise crops for 6 years on their land, and then let the land rest on the 7th year. Let it lie fallow, that the poor might have something to eat. And in Ruth, we have the beautiful story of Ruth the Moabite coming back home to Israel with Naomi. And she says one day, Naomi, let me go to the fields. Let me go and glean with the other people to provide for you and I. She was not looking for a handout. And in Ruth 2, 5 through 7, Boaz is talking to the young guy in charge of his reaper. Say, who is that young lady? He says, oh, that's Ruth. She came back with Naomi from Moab. And she said, please let me glean and gather among the sheaves after the reapers. So she came, and she has continued from early morning until now, except for a short rest. Ruth was a hard worker. She gleaned in the field until evening, and she beat out what she had gleaned. This is barley, and of course you have to strip the kernels off the heads, and then you've got to beat the chaff out. I think they usually just threw it up, and the breeze would kind of, carry the chaff downstream. But I looked it up. Do you know how much that is? It was about an ephah of barley. Quite a few of you are farmers, and you know how big a bushel basket is, right, Richard? So you can picture a bushel basket. She filled that bushel basket 3/5 full. 3/5 of a bushel basket of barley, and she had to go out and first of all find it here and there, laying on the ground. Then she had to strip all the kernels. She had to, get the chaff out of it. She worked hard. This is a beautiful design. God is providing for the poor, but it's not a handout. The people who are provided for keep their dignity, but they have to work. Now contrast that with our welfare system in this country. We have a poor design. God has a good design. Uh-oh. I see another design related to justice, specifically restitution. God said if a man steals another man's ox and then he either kills it or he sells it, God said he needs to give back 5 ox for that ox. Why such a high ratio? Well, think about what they